Call to order the special meeting of the Torch Lake Township Planning Commission. The time is now 7:04 and the meeting commences. The purpose of, actually, could please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we expected quite a turnout tonight, and I see we do have a pretty high turnout. The actual consideration of the agenda this evening, the agenda is one main topic, and that is PCA 2022-01, the Dollar General at 5470 North US 31, parcel number 05-14-106-011-10 for a retail store. The agenda this evening, our primary purpose this evening is for a public hearing regarding this particular application, which is a special use permit. So our focus this evening is going to be hearing the presentation from the applicant and hearing public commentary on this particular matter. So this is a fairly complex and fairly extensive application. There is a lot of information for the commission to consider and evaluate. And so I just want to set expectations that it will probably be a fairly long evening, and we will progress through the information the best that we have. We are still getting information almost as we speak. There were literally, how many letters today, Sarah, that were received? Another
30 or so.
Another 30 or so.
80 or so yesterday.
80 or so yesterday. So a lot of information. So there's just a lot to digest here. So with that, from the commission members, is there any questions or aspects of the agenda that you'd like to discuss before we move forward?
No.
Hearing none, could we have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
May I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is hereby approved. Conflicts of interest. Does any commission members have a conflict of interest as it relates to this agenda? Hearing none, we will move into the actual purpose of the special meeting. Again, I've articulated that already. At this point, we're going to ask the applicant to come forward and make the presentation, a summary form of the application.
Hello, my name is Craig Federline. I'm here on behalf of Dollar General with respect to our application for a special use permit. Just a couple updates I wanted to let you know. We were asked about what the status of the permits are, application process. There has been an application and that's been submitted to the county for a soil and erosion permit with MDOT permit. We're in the process of finalizing that permit, and basically that permit has been filed and we've been informed that it is in process. The well and septic permits have already been submitted to the health department, should be final within 3 weeks. And with respect to the fire department, the architect has been in communication with the fire marshal's office, and we should get an update on that shortly. But as you are well aware from the application that is submitted, handled Dollar General applications in several of the local towns up here in up north Michigan. On behalf of Dollar General, my office is out of Flint, Michigan. Name of my law office is CF Legal. Contact me or my office from the committee, working diligently with the office here to make sure that our special use application has been filed. Obviously, we've had architects and engineers that have submitted very detailed plans. And as you can see, these are very similar to plans that we've done in other communities. So when you're thinking about Dollar General, obviously they kind of have a standard that they're trying to set when they enter into a community. The key is the location and making sure that it fits within the community and the spot that it's located. Here, obviously, we have an application that's consistent with the use. It's a commercial use for the property. What I think is very important to understand is that when we want to be part of the community, okay? And in every community that Dollar General does apply to, there is always some backlash, okay? From whether it's a business owner, and in fact, I guess I'm under the understanding there's been some negative comments on Facebook from the business owner that is located across the street. So I guess there's a competition component here with all the public comment. I understand that people want a small community, but the reality is that this particular project fits within this community, fits within that local neighborhood. It's in character with that area and the large commercial property and market that's across the street. It is on a major thoroughfare here, and it's not next to any other residences. So when we look at the application, we believe we've submitted a very substantial application. What Dollar General typically does is when we submit this application to the Planning Commission, we want to hear your feedback on how we can make this application better for you, whether it's in the term of having proper landscaping to make sure that the place, has a beauty that the community wants, okay? Making sure we work with MDOT that there's a safe entrance and exit to the property. Making sure that our trash and our refuses are kept in stored containers with fencing around it, which is very common in some of the other communities that I have been to in front of the Planning Commission, that they consider that a necessary and very important factor. Lighting of the parking lot and structures. There's detailed lighting plans, parking lot plans, landscaping plans, height requirements. I mean, it's a very substantial submission that we supplied you, and I understand if it takes a little bit of time to digest. I understand that this is the first meeting. I know that the engineers and architects for Dollar General have been working directly with the township to make sure that this gets done correctly and addresses any concerns that you have. And I'll leave it up to the commission to ask any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. At this point, I would open the floor up to the commission to ask any clarifying questions at this point. I would also suggest that we will be going into the public hearing shortly, and then obviously coming back afterwards with likely many more questions for the applicant. So with that, I'll open up the stage for any commission member to ask any questions that they might so choose.
I would love some clarification on. Thank you. I would love some clarification on the building itself. I guess I was confused by maybe the different angles or something. It looked like maybe it was two different buildings. I don't know if there were multiple looks being proposed there or what.
I think, yeah, the elevation, when you change the roof line, one of the elevations, the roof line didn't come over on, I think it's the issue.
All right, so you're looking at the front, what page are you looking at? So I can reference that.
Anything with a picture that includes,
It's A2.
that's one of them, yep. Craig.
Yeah, A2.1. Because it did start out as a flat roof building, and then I said you need pitch on there because we have those design criteria.
Yeah, like that one had a lot of, the one you just showed had a lot of windows. The first one with the front view had some in the corner, but that was like it.
So the reality is, Dollar General is going to make it look the way it is.
Sir, could you please speak into the microphone?
I'm pretty loud, but sure. Dollar General is typically going to want to make it look the way the Planning Commission wants it to look, okay? If it wants a different fascia to make it look, a little bit different, obviously the standard flat roof is very typical with the Dollar Generals that are in the area, and it's obviously consistent, and it's a well-constructed building. But every once in a while, we have communities that might want to pitch in the front here or there just to change the look of the building slightly. So we are open to suggestions, and obviously any changes or concerns, or if the Planning Commission wants to take a review of the plans and says, we're going to approve it, but we want this pitch roof, or we'll approve it and we want this, we will address any of those needs that you guys determine.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm mistaken. It is on the other elevation, so the top elevation, so it's only, they're putting the facade, the north and south facade have, like a fake roof. So I don't know how big it is. But you can see if you look in the inside side of that.
Which page was this on, Sarah?
Page 2.1.
Okay, thanks. Okay. So basically, if you're driving past it from the south, you would see a pitch. If you're driving past it from the north, you would see a pitch. If you're looking square at it, you would not.
Right.
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions from commission members? So I think we're complete with initial questions, and I think we're going to open up the public hearing at this point. So from a process perspective for comments from the audience, from the public this evening, what we'd like to have you do is, if you have your comment card, hold your comment card with you. And then when we start the comments, we'll have, 3 or 4 people that kind of get in line a few feet from each other. And that way, if there are a fair number of people that need to make the comments, make your comment. And then as somebody moves, we kind of keep the line going a little bit. In anticipation of a fair number of comments this evening, we want to try to speed it up a little bit from what we experienced at a meeting yesterday. So, with that, I guess we open up the public hearing. So,
Are we given, is there a time limit?
oh yes, I'm sorry. 3 minutes per set of comments. Just also please try to make clear in your comments if you're concerned about the issue and kind of whether you're in favor or opposed and for what reasons. So first person, you can just start forming a line to go up there if you'd like. And then when you get to the microphone, please state your name, your address, hold on to your microphone until you're completed with your comments, and then drop off your comment card on your way back through. Thank you.
Good evening. Hope you can. My name's Shawn Maccauslan. I'm located at 5431 US 31 in the village of Eastport. My experience with Dollar General is they really bring zero value to the community that they're in. They bring a handful of minimum wage jobs. They're notorious for not maintaining their properties, and you can drive by them. They're all over the place, right? You got them in Charlevoix. You go down to Central Lake, Bel Air, Mansalona. Elk Rapids wouldn't let them go in there because their commission voted it down. But within a 15-mile radius of Eastport, there's 5 locations. Anyone can drive if you want to go to a Dollar General, get in your car, take you 10 minutes at most to get to a Dollar General. Their goal is to put one every 6 to 8 miles. Why, I don't know. I guess it's good for the revenue, top line revenue for the company and all the private equity money that's going into Dollar General at this point. But they're parasites. They go after the small mom and pops. That's why they're located by every one of them. If you guys remember in Central Lake when the Village Market went out of business, their last post on their Facebook page was that they could no longer make a profit because of the predatory pricing that Dollar General had. They could no longer, it took them 3 years, but they did put them out of business. Luckily, a wealthy citizen bought the store to keep the jobs in the area. So that was a good thing, but that's my opinion, okay? Not of the facts. In February 22, Torch Lake Township implemented new zoning ordinances. So we're talking less than 4 months ago, all right? A quote from 10.02 Village Business District Permitted Uses. No building or any part thereof in a village business, which is where their application is for, shall hereafter be used, erected, altered, or converted, or land used in whole or in part, except for the following. Structures shall be limited to 3,000 square feet. Okay? Their applications for over 10,000 square feet. This isn't a special use application. This is just burn the ordinances up, take them out back, throw them in the dumpster. I mean, they're not asking for a bigger driveway or to rent kayaks on the lake. They want to build a whole brand new building that exceeds the maximum allowable square footage by 3 times. That shouldn't even be considered. Throw it out. And I got a quick story. So I put up a new sign at my place, right? And I was forced to take that sign down. And the reason I was forced to take it down because it didn't meet one of the ordinances, one of the pieces of the ordinances, right? So I went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, was rejected unanimously. Okay?
Sir, you're going to have to wrap up your comments.
Okay, I will. Rejected unanimously, which just goes to show that this body here sticks to those ordinances. Very, past precedent says they do. So to grant some crazy thing like a 7,000 square foot over
Thank
the
you,
allowable
sir.
time. Give me 1 second. I'm going to read
Sir,
one
I'm
last
gonna have
thing.
to
I'm going to read one
Read
last
it
thing
very
to you.
quickly.
Okay. The master plan, there's a master plan here for the Torch Lake Township. It was adopted in 2018. So it's not 1972, okay? It was put in, this is 2018. This was between the community and the rest of the folks on the board at that time.
Okay.
And I'll read quote right here. During public participation session, this is during the introduction of the master plan, okay? During public participation sessions conducted for this plan, residents repeatedly expressed their desire for the township to retain its existing rural character. Nothing says less rural than a Dollar General, guys.
Thank you,
All right?
sir. Thank you. I have to cut
Including
you
its
off now.
friendly,
Thank you.
including its friendly
I have
and
to ask
peaceful
you-
atmosphere. Let me finish. And to protect its environmental
I'm
resources
going to have to ask you
and
to
its
leave. I
small town
apologize.
character. Let me read this so you guys understand. Reaching these goals is only possible
off
if
his
decisions
microphone.
made by the Torch Lake Township Planning Commission and other public bodies
Sir, you
respect the
have
ideas
to
stated
leave.
in this. That were written, people saying they don't want that there. 200 plus.
Time's up, Shawn.
I'm Doug Price, 4530 Hopkins Lane, Eastport, Michigan. It sounds like Dollar General's done a lot of work, only because I'm in the construction industry. It would have been nice to see something. The two people here are talking about differences in elevations and what have you. It would be nice to maybe have a set of plans so that everybody can look at what's going on there. It seems like we don't know what's going on there. Steve or Shane, you just brought up a very good, Shawn, excuse me, I'm sorry. 3,000, 10,000, that's a lot of square footage difference. I agree absolutely with everything that you said. My family's been here since 1928. So I definitely don't want to see the Dollar General. And as a man in construction, has his own business, I work on Dollar Generals all the time. And it's the same thing. It's not attractive after a couple of years. It just falls to disrepair, and I don't think it should be in Eastport.
Thank you.
Do you have a comment card, sir? Sir? Comment card, your
Comment.
comment card?
Comment card, please.
Yeah, did you fill one out? There's one right here you can fill out if you didn't fill one out. Sure, I got it. Please. If you can give it to Veronica, please. Oh, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Ready? Good
Go
evening.
ahead,
My
ma'am.
name is Arlene Westhoven. I live at 4187 Michigan Trail, which is in Eastport, but the post office is in Keewaydin. So, anyway, my concern is.
Ma'am, could I ask you to speak right into the microphone, please?
Oh, sure.
Thank
Not
you.
loud enough? Gee whiz, no one's ever said that before. If it's not been brought up before, I would like to emphasize the traffic hazard another entrance or exit would make on that particular stretch of road. There are at least 10 other entrances, going north, starting with the motel and the cafe, north to just past the market. 10 exits and entrances on a U.S. highway with no traffic control, one puny turning lane, and it's a traffic hazard. And obviously, I don't want a Dollar General there. If I want to go to Dollar General, I'll go to Central Lake. But if it's there, it's still a hazard to me and all of the motorists that use that corner. And it's about to get real busy because it's upon us. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
My name's Jim King. We're.
Sir, if you could raise the mic, I'm sorry that it's a little low for you there.
You can pull it out of there.
You can just grab, there you go.
For those of you that don't know me, we're involved in the community, and I live down on Golden Beach Road or just off Golden Beach Road. And I have to start out with saying, I read some of the land use plan yesterday, and it starts out by saying that its residents keenly want these specific items in our community, particularly in the village of Torch Lake and in Eastport. And it refers to several different things and includes a photograph of the Aurora Borealis over Torch Lake. And I don't know if any of you have driven between East Jordan and Ellsworth at night, but the Dollar General between the two locations lights up the sky. You can see it for miles. It looks like a football stadium. I don't know fully of Dollar General's community activities, as Craig, I think your name was, had stated, but I do know what it means to be community members and donate to the schools and to the sports programs, and not just one. We, and I'm sure any other businesses in here, donate to several, including Elk Rapids, Ellsworth, Central Lake, Bel Air, Mansalona, and their kids are working for us. We create jobs that are not just minimum wage jobs or low paying jobs. And in the master plan, it specifically says in more than one location, the desire to maintain rural character. And at one point it said, I believe it said a community character. And Dollar General doesn't fit that footprint. And I have no facts on the square footage and so forth. But I also think that the planning commission should definitely do what the residents want. And going by the audience here tonight and what I've heard so far, unless everybody else behind me is going to be in favor of Dollar General, I hope that you follow the residents' will and decline any proposals.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, Howard Willard, 2153 San Marino Trail. I think that we are all fortunate to live in Torch Lake Township. I think that we have a very special place that really does offer peaceful rural character, but with high quality services in the area. And we're also fortunate because in our community, the citizens get a say in whether or not a zoning application is approved or not. And when I looked on the internet, many communities don't have that benefit, and they end up with Dollar Generals that they don't want. So I think we should all be thankful that that we have the rules and regulations necessary to have our opinions followed up on in deciding whether or not the Dollar General gets here. I have to say that I find that the Dollar General is actually going to detract from the peaceful rural character of this area, and I think has the potential to damage the availability of healthy food in the area. If you Google Dollar General, there's lots of articles that talk about their strategy of going in. They price very low in the first 2 or 3 years, and essentially they can afford to do that because they're a national chain. And then after driving the more broad-based grocer out of business, then they've got the market to themselves. The problem is, unlike a Walmart that goes into some of these cities and has a very low price strategy, their product line is not very broad. So they put the grocer out of business, and then when they're the only store left, there aren't any green vegetables, there aren't the healthy kind of foods, there isn't a deli counter and those kinds of things. And so I think we should be cautious because this has the potential to leave us with less retail choice rather than with more retail choice. So thank you very much and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Kelly Berry. My husband and I reside at 5404 US 31 North. Our home is the closest parcel to the proposed project. We sit on 74 acres on Eastport Creek and a couple of its tributaries. Additionally, we own a local small business. We are not in support of this project for many reasons, but because we have a 3-minute time limit, I'll stick to the main one, being zoning. This parcel is zoned for a 3,000 square foot business. They've submitted an application for a 10,640 square foot retail business. Because of that, they have to meet certain criteria. One of that criteria in the special uses amended area section 17 is that the special use would not be detrimental or injurious to existing uses and the future development of any adjacent properties. And I think that we all know that this is detrimental and injurious, or could be. Immediately across the road, like Shawn said, is Eastport Market. And then we also have Providence Farms down the road, which is an organic market that carries other things as well. Both of those would be immediately impacted, especially the market being the closest. Let's see. So we've seen the repercussions of Dollar General's opening in rural areas, as already been mentioned. Nationally, the negative effects are far-reaching for communities that approve these businesses. Often, they have major profit losses in as little as a few weeks and end up closing shortly thereafter. We can't see this project bringing anything unique, special, or distinctive that would necessitate a 10,000 square foot building and an exception to our zoning ordinances. Similar items, they're just already provided by existing businesses. Similar, obviously better items. Secondly, in reference to the criteria for special use and relating to the standards for approval of a special use proposed must not adversely impact the environment. This lot here, there is a wetland on it, and we have a wetland right adjacent to it at the back of the lot, which is Eastport Creek. So in a nutshell, essentially, if there were some sort of spill, economic, I don't know, the septic tank explodes, whatever, things happen, it could essentially get to Torch Lake, which I don't think any of us want. It's, was once known as the third most beautiful lake in the world. I could keep going on, but my husband and I, we own 13 acres of 31 frontage, and we are in support of growth and development in that area, guided, carefully by the zoning ordinances that we set in place for these projects. So I won't take up any more time, but I thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I live at 4530 Hopkins Lane. I'm a Dollar General shopper because I work in Charlevoix. I would ask all of you, stop at that store, look at the doors. We've had 3 work orders on that shop since last winter. When I say something to the employees, all they say is, oh, they'll never fix the door. They don't fix the door. They just keep giving us a thing to keep it so it locks and no one can steal stuff. But that door is a danger to people that go in and out of it. And stop there. Look at that store. Tell me how well it's taken care of. I disagree with Dollar General for the idea of, I think it's going to increase the trash that we see around our lake. Because if it's only $1, oh, well, it's out the window. No one's going to stop to get it. And Doug and I take a very big part in Torch Lake since we live up here. We go on our gator and we pick up trash along each side of the highway and try to participate that way. I think we're going to see a huge increase if we allow Dollar General. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Stridiron. I live at 5903 North M88 in Eastport. I have an advantage over all of you. I've been in the food business 42 years, and one of my customers was Dollar General. I represented 28 different major lines that I sold at Dollar General. I can tell you, they are anything but good citizens in the food business. They are predatory. They will put you out of business in a heartbeat, and that's how they conduct their business. One point I'd like you all to consider. Shawn employs about 25 people, part-time and full-time. Dollar General will stock this store with probably 3 to 4 people, part-time, maximum, lower wages. Let's think about that. He has 25 families he's feeding. They have 3. With their pricing structure, they could put him out of business in 2 years. Because the margins, you may think the margins in the grocery business are high. I can assure you they are not. Where they make their margins is in HBC, health and beauty aids. That's the high margin part of it. Shawn has the basics of food items you need. They have, I'm not sure what the new setup is, either 4 or 5 aisles of food. And it's usually off-branded product that you don't recognize. So this does nothing for our community. I highly recommend you turn them down. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Shane, I started up front. It's Shane, not Shawn.
Are there any other public comments? Sir?
Good evening. Is this on?
Should
Okay.
be.
Fair enough.
You gotta talk louder.
Oh, I need to talk a little bit louder. There we go. Okay. My name is Art Jeffers. I live at 5905 Bayshore Drive in Eastport. And as the other gentleman said, my grandfather and his brothers came up here in the 20s. And my family and extended family has been coming up ever since. Simple. The Planning Commission has a really important role. You have really important responsibility. You have the ability, the power, the authority, and the responsibility for the character of the area for which you have jurisdiction. That power, that responsibility impacts us all. I highly respect and appreciate very much the service that you provide the community. It's really important. You have the power to change the character for better or for worse. And with all due respect, Craig, and I know you're doing the best job you can for Dollar General, the character of this community, and particularly of Eastport, would be dramatically changed for the worse with a Dollar General. And I would really appreciate it, and I know a large part of the community would, for you, the Planning Commission, who has that really important responsibility, to really think about what you will do with that in mind. The character of Eastport. There's a lot of things that would help, and there are a number of things that would make it much worse. That Torchlight Cafe, who is, it's a little bit more, frankly, expensive than I can afford to go there very often. But they restored a historic building. They really added value to our community. That is dramatically different than a Dollar General, with a dramatically different impact. I really respectfully request that you oppose and reject the application for a Dollar General.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Bean, 2255 San Marino Trail. Family's been up here since the mid-'80s, and this is my home. That's what it says on my driver's license, at least. And I get in every time I come up. First off, I would like to thank you guys for your service. I know it's not an easy job. And it's one that's quite frankly thankless. That being said, this is a very, very cornerstone moment for the village of Eastport. And your decisions are going to affect how this community continues to grow going forward. I have never, and I'll also support, and I'd like to go on record as supporting everything that Shawn said earlier. I agree with all of them and all of his key points. Dollar General is not a mom and pop store. They're represented by a Flint attorney who is not a Dollar General employee, which speaks to, talk to me about Dollar General's history of giving back to the community, right? I got a Flint guy up here who's telling me, trust me, we're going to give back to the community. That's the way we do things, folks. And like, I have a hard time with an attorney hired by somebody, you know what? Show me. I would not go in dollar market personally. The Eastport market has specific and significant products that I go in there daily for that are unique to the area. They run a fine operation. I do not support the Dollar General going up there. And again, to repeat myself, I do not think that it is in line with the vision, the strategic vision that the Planning Commission stated. And I hope that you'll do the right thing. And I wish you all very well in making that decision. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Willard. I live on San Marino Trail. I have been in the area since I was in the womb, so my family's been here forever. And I'm third generation to be up in this area. I, a couple years ago, bought a cottage of my own and plan to retire here.
Ma'am, if you could please direct your comments.
Oh, sorry.
It's hard to hear you. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I do want to stress that Dollar General, in my research, I did not realize it was a grocery store. I'm not sure everybody understands that, but they very much are a grocery store, but no healthy food. And what happens when they come in, they cause the grocery store in town, and they usually target independents. They cause them to go out of business. When they're, the existing grocery store usually has about a 30% drop in revenue. And for grocers, that's enough to put you out of business. And it usually only takes a few years at most, maybe two. And I would have to say, I have serious concerns about the health of the community. I think it's very healthy to have independent grocers. And I think we would be a bad neighbor to approve a Dollar General coming in, because they will surely put our existing grocery store with healthy food out of business. I see it as a health and safety problem for the area. And I'd like to read a quote here. A recent Department of Agriculture analysis found that from 2007 to 2015, the overall number of grocery stores in the US declined from around 46% to 43%, with independents responsible for only 11% of retail food sales. Since they're not technically groceries, dollar stores were excluded from the analysis, meaning that it understates the decline of independent food retailers. I've lived in a lot of places and I've seen it time and time again. The Dollar General comes in, or the dollar store comes in, and they displace the local stores. And in poor neighborhoods, it becomes a real problem because they don't have available access to fresh foods. And that's a real problem for those communities. So I just wanted to say that. In terms of safety, Dollar Generals have a long track record of safety issues for their employees. They are very much targeted because people know that they're thinly staffed, and late at night, they are often taken advantage of. And if you just Google safety of, there's a lot that comes up. I'm sorry, it's not the best place to work, and they're notorious about not treating their employees well. I, for one, think it would be unconscionable to approve this going in across the street from what is a good neighbor in the Eastport market. I would also like to say it's important for us to preserve the uniqueness of this area, and I think we should just follow our zoning plan.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other public comments this evening? Sharon?
I'm hoping not to be the last one. Thank you, commission members. You had a late night last night, and I appreciate all your time tonight also. My name is Sharon Schultz. I live at 5450 East Birch Drive, Eastport. I didn't have time to get it in a letter, but I did pass one out for everybody that didn't get it in their packet. I'm just going to read what I have. The application of a special use from Dollar General, in my opinion, doesn't provide the standards of a small town character here in Eastport. By that, I'm saying it doesn't conform to the mix of the neighborhood, surrounding area of the lands, businesses, and the community as a whole, even though this gentleman said it fits the community. The uses of the adjacent land is rural in character with a small neighborhood feel, and it doesn't give or allow the intensity of having a nationally owned and operated retail Dollar General store in this location. Does it really meet the master plan in this community? The most recent population from the 2020 census for the township was 1,212. Is granting a special use for this township of agricultural, open land, water shores, and a low density of population meet the needs of a special use? Torch Lake Township isn't an urban area. We are available and a valuable rural area. I could talk about the local market, which many of you already have, which I was a part in building and developing 44 years ago, 1978. I was a young 25-year-old. Still doing great service to this community, thanks to the current owners and the former owners. There wasn't any grocery store from Elk Rapids to Charlevoix on US 31. Zoning wasn't developed then, but now we have an ordinances to help with the character of the surrounding community. I stand by my sincere comments and state that I'm opposed to granting this special use application to Dollar General, headquartered in Tennessee, not rural Eastport, and it doesn't fit.
Thank you.
My name is Charles Goosen. I live at 3930 Theory Circle. Coming in here last is a challenge because all the good stuff has already been verbalized. However,
Sir, yeah, could you please give the microphone?
However,
thank you.
We live in Torch Lake Township, which is part of Antrim County, which is part of the state of Michigan, which is part of this great United States of America. This is a republic form of government, i.e., you work for us, in case you forgot about that. We pay the bills, and we have a say in what happens. It's very clear to me. I haven't heard anybody jumping up and down lighting firecrackers wanting to have a Dollar General. Listen to your employer, the people here. We don't want Dollar General in this community. If somebody wants to go to a Dollar General, my God, there's enough of them you could walk to if you had to. Short drive, let them have them there. They'll still get our business if we need to go to a Dollar General, but we don't need one here. It's very, very clear that the community does not want that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I would like to just address an issue that relates specifically to me and my wife. Both of us are strongly opposed. I'm Dale Teal. I live on Bayshore Drive, which is the driveway or the road just north of the county park, which is of extreme value to our community. But I first bought property up here in 1984 when I was still living down south and actively working as a lawyer.
Sir, could I ask you to speak up just a little
Yes,
louder, please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
But this is a very attractive area, and what makes it attractive is the fact that we are not crowded with businesses and specifically chain stores of any type, any size, any name. And any of those in this area, in my opinion, should be prohibited. When we lived here for a while and were spending weekends here, then when I got near retirement in 2003 and 4, we tore down our little A-frame and built a substantial house because we decided this is where we wanted to live when we retired. Because it's a fantastic community. You got Charlevoix and Elk Rapids, both 15, 20 minutes away, that offer more advantages. And we had a nice little store which offers gasoline, reasonable food products, and that's what you need for emergencies or for close pickup. But fortunately, we didn't have any chains of any type, which if I wanted to live near a mall, I would have probably stayed in the city I was in down southern part of the state. I think that this type of a business, any type of a chain store virtually, probably would be an objection to me, because I think what a lot of people want up here and enjoy is the quality of life that this unique community provides. One of the first things I did when I moved up here was serve on the committee that resulted in the building that we are currently serving in. And we made decisions there that said, we got to go forward and improve the quality of life. We provided significantly improved fire facilities in this building, facilities for ambulance and med techs. And there were a lot of people who questioned that. But we were looking for this township area to grow with respect to the quality of life. And this building has gone in that direction. It has improved immensely. And I think most people now would say we did everything right in that regard. But we were still keeping it limited to things that were better for the people who were living here. In my opinion, a Dollar General brings in no value, no improvement in our quality of life. And consequently, for that reason, I would have to say, I don't think we should have it here because it's going to discourage other people from wanting to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other public comments this evening? Hearing none, I think we will close the public here. Well, we will close the comments section of this. I have questions about to Sarah. How many submitted letters have we received thus far?
We received 223 letters. That's what we had this afternoon around by 3:30.
Have we received some since then?
Sharon has a letter. I'm guessing these are the copies of that. That's the only additional letter that I had. But we asked that all comments be in by noon for the public comment. So I don't know if there's any sent in the email somewhere. I guess we do the noon so we can get them printed for you.
Okay. So question for the committee members. We have 200 and how many? 223. Should have written that down.
How many in favor of it, Dollar General?
So a question to the commission members. How do you think that we should read each of those? Or do you think we should I want to get perspective from the commission on whether or not we should read those or whether or not we should kind of have them summarized and have Sarah's and hear your comments about each one.
I think that the summary is great. I've read
Okay.
every single one of them, and they said a lot of the same things over and over. There was a little sprinkle of new things here and there, but I think probably the summary, I haven't gotten to read it, but I made my own summary. It's probably pretty good. Yeah.
Any other the commission members that think we should read those letters?
No, I concur with Laura.
I think I read every one of them. I printed some out that I would like to include in comments. I think the summary is good. They will go on the record. They'll be submitted in the record.
Oh, yeah, they're in the file, yep.
Right. So I'm okay with that.
Okay, I certainly agree with that as well. So Sarah, could you paraphrase what you heard from all 223 of those? How many were in favor and how many are opposed, and what the kind of themes that you heard?
Sure. So Jackie read through all of these and put together this after I promised I would do it last night. So I passed the buck, so she did all the hard work for me. Anyways, we have a lot about environmental concerns, pollution, litter, watershed, noise, visual blight. The store's too big, traffic concerns, ruins the rural character. A lot of it is about the character, ruining Eastport, the neighborhoods. We did have in that grouping, 220 letters were against, 3 were in support. They're ugly. They ruin the mom and pop feel. Put locals out of business, poor quality of food, doesn't enhance the area, doesn't support the up north lifestyle, corporate profit, crime. It's a dangerous section of the highway. It doesn't attract tourism. It doesn't conform with the master plan. So there's a few more, but that's the general gist of it. We did provide these also on your table, so you can take it home and look through it in more detail and add to it or anything like that.
And what were the reasons in favor?
In favor, well, they were in support of it. A couple other comments were Eastport market prices are too high, competition is needed, there's a current monopoly, and they don't offer sales on their products.
Okay. So any questions for Sarah about the summaries of what she just provided?
No, I don't have any.
Denise, you had mentioned you had a few that you had pulled out. Was there something you wanted to emphasize there, or?
Let me just review this. Well, one of the letters specifically gave a site that you could go and see a video. I think it was on 60 Minutes, and I don't know, CBS Morning Show was very informative about the business practice. The obnoxious lighting by Mr. King. We value our darkness, and that is a huge issue in this township. I have Native people that live around me, and it's extremely important. And, to know that there's going to be somebody said like a football field is worrisome to me. I did read the comment about competition is good, and I disagree that this is really a fair competition. There's no way you can compete in a locally owned place that doesn't have the same buying power. So I think that argument is not really valid. The idea of jobs. And then I did want to, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I don't know if citizens are aware, but we are going to be we're starting the process of looking at the master plan for a possible revision. And when we look at land use, I mean, that is something that I think that we're going to be paying attention to is, what is a use for that land that isn't something that is affecting a citizen's livelihood that lives in our township. I mean, we're supposed to be committed to their general well-being. So on those points, basically, or specifically, in reference to the letters, those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Are there other commission members that have had particular letters or items that they'd want to bring forward regarding what they've read or heard this evening in regards to the matter?
I guess I just have a comment that, I mean, it's great to read all of the voices of the community. Very clear on what the consensus is. And it's great that we can speak those opinions. When it comes down to it, I'm glad you brought up the master plan. Really, that's what we've got to go off on, the master plan, what's in the zoning ordinance. So it's really important that we get that right. So any opportunity that we have to make it even better in the future, it's going to be extremely important that everybody participates.
Okay, thank you. So with that, having concluded the public hearing aspect and considered comments from the public, both verbal and written, I think we can move now into kind of review of the application, discussion, clarifying questions at this point. So Sarah, from a process perspective, I think it might make sense for you to walk through what you've received from Dollar General and kind of give the commission a summary version and kind of call out points within the application.
Sure. So in your packet, there was a staff report where I went through and reviewed the application, reviewed the site plan. We did have an in your packet. There might be a little bit of confusion. So there was a staff report, some information, and then it kind of looked like another staff report. That was from the completeness review that at the initial application they turned in. And there were some items that were not on the plan or included that they went back and added on. So that's they annotated that to say where it was on the plan based on my comment that it wasn't there or they added it. So I'll just walk through the staff report kind of quickly for you, hitting the high points. But the applicant already mentioned the review letters from the outside agencies. So the ordinance requires that they request that, like we talked about last night. Sometimes we get information, sometimes we don't. I'm happy to hear that they have applied and they are talking with everybody. This property does meet all of the, minimum requirements for the zoning district as far as size and width and all of that information. And they have complied with lot coverage and impervious surface requirements that the ordinance has in it. I feel like they've provided all of the information that we have requested from them as far as specific requirements out of the ordinance. Talking about.
So Sarah, could I pause you right there? So if you take right out of the gate and you look at, say, any one of these particular, I guess, criteria or Village District General Regulations of a site plan, and if it says provided, that means they provided information within the application in regards to that particular item.
Correct.
Does provided mean that it met the criteria or met the standard?
It at least, some of them are very specific. So I would say, yes, it does. They meet that minimum criteria. Some of them are more broad. So there may be some items that you say, yeah, they did provide that. For example, maybe buffering or screening to the neighboring properties or surrounding properties. Yes, they did provide some, but when you're looking through this and you're looking at the standards and the requirements, you may say, we need additional screening and buffering. We don't think you provided enough. And that's something that's in the standards, in the sections that I didn't fill in. Because you'll see at the end of the report, my recommendation is that we anticipate a lot of public comment. You've received a lot of written public comment. And we needed to talk about it. This is the first time that the Planning Commission's seen this application. It's a little premature to have a decision or standards kind of already drafted for you because of the size and the nature of that. So if there's any, and if there's anything in your review and looking through the application that you don't agree with me that it has been provided, then feel free to speak up and talk about it. One of the items I would like you to talk about is about the roof, the appearance with the pitch, because the ordinance just says roof shall have an appearance of a minimum pitch 512. And so on two sides it has that appearance, but on the other two sides it does not have that appearance. So I'm sure there'll be some discussion about that and how to deal with that and what you were looking for. That's their first attempt with their architect to try to comply with that section.
I know the applicant had commented early on that he mentioned that there were specific other Dollar Generals in the area, and you indicated that you've seen them, you know what they look like. To me, that implies that, minus the aspect that there might be some pitch differences, it implies that they're going to look very much the same coloring, same kind of scheme, and that's consistent with the standard that you had mentioned as well, correct?
Well, that is correct, but it also, when these plans are put together, obviously they're to meet the requirements of the local township planning commission, okay? We heard some issues that have been addressed by the public, and I think it's important maybe that I address those for the planning commission. I do believe that we meet the requirements of the master plan. I think it's also important for this public body to realize that the application that was filed predated the zoning changes. Okay, it's kind of grandfathered in here. Also, with respect.
Okay, could you pause right there for a second, for a moment?
Yeah. Let me finish. With respect to a couple other issues I'd like to address is the lighting. Great points made out with respect to the lighting. And the lighting, we work with the planning commission, make sure that the lighting is consistent with what the community wants, but within reasonable safety standards as required by code.
The public comment is over. Just let us ask our questions, please, and let us understand what his process is.
Also, you heard issues with respect to concerns regarding the wetlands. There's detailed plans with respect to the landscaping and the development of the site so that there isn't an issue with respect to the wetlands. There was also a wetlands analysis that has been supplied and provided to the planning commission. So I wanted to address those particular concerns and any other concerns. But and the other issues that we typically get from the planning commission is obviously if there is a preliminary approval, that's all we're asking for, and then we can work with the planning commission with landscaping, lighting, the colors, making sure that we have the appropriate buffers that you've heard. But I do believe that this application is consistent and meets the requirements of your code, but that's obviously my opinion.
Could you repeat what you said about the lighting? Craig, could you repeat?
With respect to the lighting,
Yeah.
okay, we will work with the planning commission with respect to the lighting that is required for the store. So what happens with the lighting plan that you're seeing, this is a typical lighting plan that complies with the code and the ordinance requirements. However, each township and the planning commission can request certain lighting changes, the number of lights, it's all a balance of safety and the lighting for the area, okay?
Thank you. Sarah, I have a number of questions. First of all, the date of the application, the applicant had just indicated that it was submitted before zoning changes. So can you help us understand that process, because we recently had created those and our discussions around that?
Yeah, give me just a second to. Oh, this doesn't have a stamp on it. This application wasn't complete prior to the new zoning regulations, and we process, and the approval process is the zoning ordinance in effect when you're reviewing it. and approving it. So because it wasn't approved under the old ordinance isn't effective. You have to deal with the ordinance you have in effect right now to review and approve it.
And, this is the first we've seen this application, so our job is to review completed applications, not to review partial applications that come in, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and that's why we do the completeness review in the office to make sure all the information's on there. So we did that. But like I said, it's the ordinance in effect when you approve it or make a decision is the one that you need to look at.
Okay. And then I think another matter is that, I think it's important for the applicant to understand that there's a lot for us to process here. And, you are entitled to your opinion, sir. We also have our jobs to do and review your application, and we will do that. We have a process to follow. So, Sarah, help me as well understand, because, we are just now seeing this from the standpoint of, you've gotten information, you're processing it, you're matching it up, because there's a lot of different aspects to the engineering, to the kind of the different criteria, I'll call them for lack of a better expression, and everything that goes in association with kind of the core of it, which would I mean, the building, the sizes, the pitches, the fascia, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot for us to go through in that regard. And then there's also the aspects of things like Laura had mentioned, the master plan fit and things of that sort that we need to evaluate. So, I think what, for the purposes of this evening is concerned, this commission will not be rushed. We will do our process as we understand it to work and operate as a commission, so we can deliberate and understand the implications of everything here. Could also understand that we have a very strong public opinion on this matter. That is something that we will also evaluate very carefully. So I think with that, I want to go through, have you continue to see, you had started to highlight a few items. I would like you to continue to do that and allow the commission the opportunity to answer some questions.
Sure. So let me get back to that part. So I was talking about, I would like to have the planning commission talk about the roof, if that appearance is, if you think it meets that appearance requirement, and the landscaping. I believe that should be a discussion too, that you're buffering, that you feel that it's substantial enough to protect the neighborhood. I'm not saying that because I think it does or it doesn't. I just think that that's a valuable conversation for the planning commission to have, and that you need to be satisfied with that in your standards and criteria. And so tonight I'm trying to get you to a place where if you need additional information from the applicant, or you want them to provide something or change something, we're all here, let's talk about it and get that information. So the next time we come back together, you can move forward with either making a decision or evaluating that. I don't want to leave tonight not giving them any direction and then come back next month and say, we need all of this information. So, and you still may ask for more once you kind of think about it and marinate on everything you've heard tonight and that you've read. So that's always an option. But I think if those would be two topics I would like for you to take a look at and discuss. We will want to get a fire department review on it. I think that's important, because we have some information about underground storage tanks and accessibility. One of the standard, ma'am. Okay.
Thank you.
That's also in one of the standards, talks about fire and access and all of that. And I just don't have enough detail to be able to say, I don't think it's going to be an issue or not. So we're really going to want to get an input from them on what they need there. It'd be great also to, after hearing comments tonight, maybe talk with MDOT a little bit to see if they have any intents on doing any kind of turn lane or any kind of something to help with traffic for people turning in and out as an option, because we have heard there's some concern on the road for that as well. And I know they have certain warrants for when they can do that, those types of things, but, you know, I think I can give them a call too and just kind of see what they're feeling on that to help give us an idea prior to permitting. Otherwise, I think for now, I would just turn it over to the Planning Commission to see if you have any questions, comments, discussion on the application. It is rather large, and I did not include all of the schematics of the building, so I figured you didn't need to know how the structure was electrically wired and plumbed and mechanicals. But if you are interested in any of the information, we do have it available if somehow it makes a difference to your decision.
Okay. So I heard you list about 6 items, well, 5 and maybe 1 to add in addition to other ones. I heard roof, i.e. pitch, things of that nature, landscaping, and I put screening into that as well. Fire department review, fit with master plan. I don't know that you said that or if I said that or both of us. Department of Transportation, i.e. traffic management, lanes, things and safety around that. And then other permits that would be required. The applicant had mentioned several permits that were either in process or have been applied for, but are certainly pending.
Yeah, and a lot of times the permits themselves, we would say, you know, a condition of approval is that those outside agency permits are obtained prior to a land use permit. But I'm comfortable with knowing that they've applied for them, it's under review. If those agencies have any major concerns, they would get back with us right away on it. Otherwise, they're just going through their permitting process. So I wouldn't need to. I know the health department reached out to us and kind of asked about it. I don't know that they provided any comments related to it other than to say they've been contacted. So.
And one other one I was going to add would be the environmental aspects. And I did go through that. There was a lot of information there. Certainly the proximity to the wetlands, the drainage into the creek that runs through that goes into Torch Lake, implications of that, not just for Dollar General, but any business that might be there, I think is important. So I'll pause there and open it up to the commission for, to ask some questions or of Sarah or potentially the applicant.
Sarah, could you help unpack the discrepancy between the 3,000 square foot and the 10,000 square foot and how that's was moved forward?
Sure. So in the zoning ordinance and in section 10.02, it does have a limitation. So 10.02 is site plan review approval for those uses listed there. And in site plan review approval, the maximum building size can be 3,000 square feet. At that same time, and when we discussed that, we talked about making anything over 3,000 square feet a special use permit. And so if you go to the next section, which is probably 10.03, I'm looking it up right now, it says special uses. And so those are uses that are approved by special use. And the last item listed there says any use in 10.02 that's larger than 3,000 square feet. So that's where this falls into that. So we allow for the retail grocery as under site plan review, less than 3,000 square feet. But then because it's that use and it's larger than 3,000, that kicks it into the special use category. So it is proper to be here. It is a valid application. It is a use you can consider as a special use permit in that district.
Does that clarify it, Denise? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other commission members that have questions on that? Any other questions from the commission on any other items as relates to the special use application for this evening for the applicant or for Sarah?
There was something about parking. 42 needed, 35 or 30, yeah.
They added on the additional parking spaces when they reapplied. So the initial application with the completeness review had less, and they did, when I talked to him, Rodney was the gentleman I was working with. He said, we don't usually put those many spaces in there. We aren't usually classified as a grocery store. And I said, well, that's the closest thing I've got. So this is what we need. And they put them on the plan.
Okay, thanks.
So Sarah, help me with the timeframes for review of something like this from, what is our legal responsibility? And then, given the amount of information we're trying to absorb here, what would be an expected timeframe for us to provide feedback for the applicant and, kind of information that we're absorbing tonight?
Yeah, it's important to continue to move forward with your review and your application. So I would say tonight, like, again, ask for any information, allow them to provide that documentation, whatever you need, depending on when they give that back, and we can get that into a packet for a meeting that you have, at that meeting, be able to review it. We do want to allow the public an opportunity to review that same documentation and provide comment on it as well. So I would imagine that once we get to a spot where we kind of have a final record, a final documentation of everything, we'd want to hold a public hearing again, just to make sure that everybody can review everything and comment on everything under that public hearing. So something that's kind of unique about, I'm not going to say unique about your ordinance, but different about your ordinance is that the ordinance says that when you have a complete application, you have to schedule the public hearing right away. Which I've talked about this before, and in the draft ordinance we're working on, it doesn't have that requirement to schedule it right away, because it would allow you to see the application, ask for additional information, then hold the public hearing, instead of now having to go back and do it all over again to get the comment. So having to have another public hearing with the additional information, will take another month from that. So it's a couple month process at a minimum to get through all of that. But again, I'd ask you to keep moving forward towards something. I don't want you to just stop or say, I'm not ready. You need to move towards an action.
So I've got a question. You say it's important to move forward, we need to move forward. Is it required that we continue to get information, pardon me, that we ask the applicant to continue to put together information, and that we ask the public to come to another meeting to say likely many of the same things, because they weren't about the permit details, they weren't about the traffic analysis, the MDOT permit? Is that a requirement that we have another meeting and ask for full application details?
Well, if you feel like you have a complete application and can make a decision tonight, then you can move forward and do that. But if you ask for additional information, then you do need to allow the public the opportunity to review that and provide comment on it, in that process. So what I would suggest, if we go through this, get additional information, have a public hearing. At the end of that public hearing, if you have the documentation and you're ready to just review it, and kind of what we do is we just close the record. You make a motion to close the record, so that anything you have before that you can consider. Any new documentation or public comment you hear related to it, you can consider. That kind of helps the planning commission to stop getting inundated with documents and information, so that you can just focus on what you have. So we may get to a point that we have to do that.
So I'd like to take a kind of temperature check of the commission to see what you're feeling as far as having enough information in front of you. Do you need more? Do you have more questions about additional information? Do you have enough to process now? Do you need to consider everything you've heard tonight? I'm just trying to get a general sense for how people, how the commission is viewing this at this point.
Andy, I'd like to see some more info, most especially from the fire chief and from MDOT regarding a possible deceleration or turning lane, and then I'll see what they think about it.
Okay.
I'll go. I don't really. I think that the traffic issues are probably solvable if there are any. I read through the wetland delineation report. Most of the other items in the submittal are kind of test fits. They're specific to the site for grading, but the issues are, in my opinion, too big for our community. Everybody stated, and I heard it, it's overwhelming. Community's overwhelmingly against. Doesn't fit with the character of what we're calling a hamlet or a village. The Dollar General density in the general area is already saturated. It's going to hurt local businesses, not a benefit to the residents and visitors. I wouldn't want any applicant, whether it was 31 Scoops last night or Dollar General, whoever the applicant is, that wouldn't want to have Greg drive back up to say, let's get some more information, and already have the same opinion that, at least that I've got, but that I'm only one commissioner up here. So I don't need any more information.
Okay, thank you.
I've been trying to figure out what difference it would make if we had this more information. I don't think it's going to make any difference. So I'm with Bill. I think we should just move forward.
Denise?
I feel we have enough information. I have my master plan all marked here with all the different references to support. So I feel confident in making a decision tonight.
Okay. Laura?
I think if we went through those points, it would probably be pretty easy. I think that there was a lot of information here, and I think that I agree with Bob that a big concern was safety. I don't know if we went through those points, if it would make any difference to have that information or not. But if it were going to be considered, I think that would be a very important thing to know, how the safety would be handled, how the traffic would be handled.
And as we move forward, we certainly will talk about that. Jason?
I'm okay with moving forward.
Okay. And then the chairman agrees as well. So, Bob, actually, you had made some comments, but are you okay moving forward? And we can talk about some of these transportation and. Absolutely. Okay. So, Sarah, let's start walking through. Is there anything else on the application itself that you would like to highlight?
No, so are you going to talk about your list, or you want to start walking through this criteria for special use and site plan review?
I think we can start walking through the criteria.
Okay. So that starts on page 13 of 17 in your staff report is the standards for site plan approval. And again, I'll just remind the planning commission and let the public know that for the site plan criteria and the special use criteria, all of that criteria must be met in order to approve the application.
Yes. 13, mine got mixed up here.
13 of 17.
13.
13.
Toward the front.
There it is. Okay, I found it. There's
No?
a couple different 17s. 11, 9. I think I flipped it before. I'll get there. Yeah. Sure. So just from a process perspective, we are going through this particular application now and we're basically bouncing looking at the application relative to some criteria that we have as a special use application. So what has been happening is we have been deliberating and discussing this. I took a kind of a sense of where the commission was and how they felt if we had enough information. And the feeling is that we do, so we're going to proceed forward with the review of the application. And now the chairman has flipped over the pages. I think I just figured it out here as I was talking. And because we're printed double side, I couldn't find where I was in my packet, but now we're good to go. So with that, Sarah, I think we can go ahead and start just to make sure everybody's on the same page. It's page 13 of 17, and it would be, this would be standards for approval, 18.07, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So item A, and we are going to go through this in pretty great detail here, but we're going to kind of march along. So each site plan shall conform to all applicable provisions of this zoning ordinance and the standards listed below. The first one, all elements of the site plan should be sufficiently organized in relation to topography, size of the lot, character. Excuse me, in the audience, if you're please quiet in the audience, please. We're trying to hear each other talk. Thank you. The site shall be developed as to not impede the normal and orderly development of improvement and surrounding property for uses permitted in this ordinance. So for item 1, has that standard been met?
Yeah.
Anyone think that it has not been met? Sarah, did you have any comment on that? We believe it's been met.
I believe it's been met.
Okay, we're going to move on to standard 18.07, number 2. The landscape shall be preserved by minimizing tree and soil removal and by topographic modifications which result in maximum harmony with adjacent areas. I think that it may be partially, I'm going to go here and say I think it may be partially meant. I do think that we might have some additional items we would put on there based on what we'd heard. I know this is a separate matter from the view of the building and so forth. This is in regards to the landscape around it, but I believe that we would be able to meet that particular one, even though we're not meeting it necessarily completely right now.
Yeah, I think it probably meets the standards. I think at least what the applicant said is they'd work with the township on what we'd put in as conditions to modify landscaping, sloping, anything like that. So I'm not sure how to check it here. It meets what the ordinance is, but it doesn't, or what the standards are, but it probably does not meet what and if we were to eventually suggest as modifications to the site plan, right?
Yeah.
It meets the minimum standards and we would not want the minimum standards.
So you're satisfied, but you feel like there's some conditions that you need to be able to be satisfied, that standard to be met and satisfied. So do you want to talk about those conditions right now so that you can say, yes, this standard is satisfied because we've talked about it and we all agree on these conditions?
I would mark it and move on, to come back to, is what I would do.
I think that's fair.
Okay, I'm
Confused?
I'm going to plead, I'm new here.
Okay.
My overarching, what I've marked in is every single one of our areas talks about how we want to preserve, the community wants the preservation of the ruralness. And so I don't think in general this meets the requirement, whether the specific things down the line meet it. I think in general, this does not fit our community. So now I'm in personal conflict of saying, yes, I'm ready, and then going step by step and we get to the end and everything fits. And oh my goodness, then we have to say, we approve.
Yeah, and
I'm
I
not
think
comfortable with that.
I understand that. I get where you're coming from on that. I think what it is that each one of these particular standards needs to be looked at independently. There are, and they either would meet or they don't. Or they would meet with modifications or conditions that we would put upon them. Some of them are going to meet, some may not. Some may be flat out. It's possible we get to some that won't meet at all, even with any condition. But from a review perspective, we go through each one of these, and as we go through it, and if, as Sarah had mentioned, if any of these we feel that cannot be met, then that would be a time when we would address that particular standard, decide on that, and that could mean a denial at that point.
Yeah.
Or could mean approval.
I think you should focus on what this is asking. It says the landscape is preserved by minimizing tree and soil removal, and that the basically grade modification is maximum harmony with adjacent uses. So when you look at that and you look at, they provided this survey, which is one of the first pages, and you can see the tree, there's, bubbles for the trees, and you can see what they have on there later on. Do you feel like they're preserving the maximum amount of landscaping on the property from what exists there? And that they're grading the site to be in harmony with the neighbors. They're not adding a bunch of fill or putting it in a hole or something like that. So when you look at those kind of requirements, can you say, yes, I believe they did, or no, I think they clear cut they did, this doesn't, but they clear cut the property and they didn't preserve anything. I think that's easy to say, no, they didn't satisfy it. You know, this you're gonna have to look at and say, did they remove the minimum amount necessary to do what they needed to do?
Does that help? So do you think it's met the minimum standard?
Yes.
Yes. Does any committee member believe that item A2 is not met? Okay. Moving on to number 3, all stormwater should be managed and disposed of on site and shall not affect neighboring properties. Such stormwater management shall handle all stormwater in compliance with Antrim County soil erosion. So there's a permit that would help address that, but that has not been obtained yet, correct?
Right, and I don't know, I'd have to check with soil erosion to see if they even can obtain it prior to owning the property, or closing on it. So this would be one of those that it's satisfied, but a condition would be you're required to get your soil erosion permit.
And that makes sense to me. So committee agree that this would be met as long as a soil erosion permit is obtained.
Yes.
Okay. Number 4, the site plan shall provide reasonable visual and sound privacy for all dwelling units located therein. Fences, walks, barriers, and so forth. Do we think that that particular standard has been met?
I see a landscape plan for visual, but I don't know how it applies to sound. I don't know that that's part of the application that's been submitted. And I don't know that there's been any sort of analysis of what the noise level would be from the development either. So I don't think that part's been met.
What's the closest?
The landscaping is on one of the plans.
And Sarah, what's the nearest distance from the border of the site to the next dwelling?
I don't have that information. It'd be something I'd have to get to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking, so on page 2 of my report, I put the aerial in there. Mine's in black and white. I don't know if yours is in black and white too. So this parcel is outlined in a darker, it's in a darker color, and these are the other parcel lines, the light lines. So there's a dwelling on the current property. You can see that house there. Looks like there's a driveway to the south that probably goes to a house, but I can't tell.
Did I not see that in the plan that dwelling was to be removed?
Yeah,
Removed?
on the existing parcel, everything's gonna be removed.
Yeah.
Okay, are you speaking about our residents? I don't mean to interrupt. Our house is not.
Yes, you're the south driveway.
Right.
Yeah. And we're not saying the south driveway would be removed. We're looking at a boundary of the parcel, and there's another, I don't know if it's a dwelling or if it's a house or barn. It's on the very back of it. That's what I'm looking.
That's the log house,
Yeah.
Andy.
Okay. So for item 4, are we saying that this is not, the standard is not met?
I don't know.
Okay.
I want more info.
You need more information? What kind of information do you need? To noise, about the noise?
Okay.
But, I don't think it's met. If you go to the second part of it, it talks about the level of activity and about generating noise. And I'm not seeing a market analysis that shows that the business is viable, and there's not a traffic analysis that says it would generate an X number of trips, and that's why it would need a deceleration lane or any traffic control. It's a building that's going to go up and sell stuff, but you really can't tell whether or not there's going to be noise generation from it and at what level.
So I think,
So if we wanted more information, a little bit like last night, what's the business plan? Other than we want to develop a commercial building. If we want to be consistent, what's the business plan? How many trips are expected here? Because we've got an expected, there's going to be more trips, there's going to be more of an issue, it's going to be more cars, going to be more noise, but we don't have that information, so I don't think it's.
yeah, there was
Read something, 16.
There was some about traffic and number of frequency of per hour, I think, of visits somewhere in the application.
16. Yeah.
32 transactions per hour, 16 incoming, 16 outgoing. Yes, peak traffic.
When you can, I mean, I think you should, if you're making a decision tonight, you should give the applicant an opportunity to explain, to answer your question about maybe he has additional information that will allow you to make a decision without requesting additional information.
Where did that information come from? From the 16 came from the applicant,
That's
correct?
from the applicant. That was kind of their cover letter or additional information narrative that they turned in.
Okay. So do you have any additional information other than what you provided in the application regarding that question around amount of traffic flow and noise associated with it?
Can you go up to the microphone?
Yes, that's a good point.
Not off the top of my head, but what typically happens if this planning commission feels that we meet all the criteria with the exception of a need for a traffic study or a noise study, you can approve it subject to that, and we'll submit whatever necessary documentation you need to qualify and to make the planning commission happy that we've met the appropriate standard.
Okay, thank you.
When we're talking noise, what kind of noise do you? I mean, loading and unloading?
Well, I mean, that was the question raised. I mean, it could be any variety of things, but I think the question was, is there a concern over noise or not? And if there's not, and the committee feels that there's not a concern for that, then that portion of it would be met.
And I'm guessing the noise that we're questioning is the loading and unloading.
Loading and unloading.
Unloading, and trash probably with commercial, but that's usually what it is. Yeah, trucks coming in and out, loading, unloading, and removing trash.
Can you speak to any of that when your truck traffic or anything like that on the property? You can grab that mic and bring it right to your seat.
And as you're doing that, I think also in terms of frequency and timing of deliveries.
I would not know those answers off the top of my head as the attorney for Dollar General and going before the Planning Commission. In fact, we haven't had a single Planning Commission request any concern with respect to noise, with respect to loading and unloading, because that's usually not to the level of an issue that comes to a decibel that it becomes an issue. More importantly is what we typically get from Planning Commission with respect to the trucks and loading and unloading is just making sure it's safety and what side of the building they're coming in for purposes of loading and unloading trash. But we really haven't had it to address that issue.
I'm surprised we talk about loading and unloading all the communities I work in, loading
Yeah,
and unloading all the time.
I was going to say, and as you can probably hear, there was a lot of concerns around the quietness of the neighborhood. And we all know when you have trucks that back in, drops pallets or whatever, and it makes a big old racket in the middle of the night, especially when a business that's open at the hours that this business would be open. So that could be a concern.
I mean, it's got to be pretty comparable to the noise that Elk Lake or Eastport Market has with loading and unloading. I would think pretty comparable.
That is probably true. Okay. So for item number 4, I think we're saying this is currently unknown or not met. Then we need more information to evaluate, correct?
And what kind of information are
So
you looking for?
I think we're looking for more specifics on the noise, although I'm probably less worried about the noise as I am about the fences and landscaping and that. That was probably where I was more concerned about number 4. But I know Bill, and he just stepped away, would want to hear, he had concerns about the noise.
Please leave, sir. Public comments over.
So if anyone is free to leave if they would like, there is a process we go through here, and it's a very important process to understand the implications of this application. So, Bill, I know when you stepped away, we were talking about, we're still on number 4.
I missed
because-
something, obviously.
Yeah. What you missed was that there was some concerns over the noise, but then I had made the comment, Jason said, well, it seems probably comparable with the store across the street, and that's probably true.
Yeah.
I said, I was probably more concerned about fences and walks and barriers and things than I was about the noise, but both are considerations. I think the question at hand here is, do we feel that this standard is met or not? Or do we need more information before we determine that?
Yes, and move on.
Yes,
Yeah.
the standard's met and move on,
Yeah, I
but
think
we
that was a good
make
quote
it
earlier.
subject to additional information.
I did not look at that traffic analysis, and my guess is that with any of their stores, there's going to be loading, unloading. It's a good point with Eastport Market across the street. I doubt that there's additional noise generation. My thought was about the building that was immediately north. One of the public speakers talked about being the closest resident to the location. That's where I started to really think about the noise, whether that was going to be mitigated. I don't know what the noise impact is, so I don't really know what the mitigation could be, which is why I wondered if this particular standard was met.
But Bill, so you are saying now that you're comfortable saying it's met?
Yes.
Okay. Jason, I think you think it's met, if I interpret you
Yeah, I
correct.
agree with Bill.
Laura?
Yeah, I agree in that I want to make sure that it's not too loud for the neighbors, to make sure that those barriers, I mean, maybe it's a condition, I don't know, but to make sure, to understand what the noise is and that we put a condition in there to cover it.
Craig, I know you're just a lawyer, but it says AM hours. We're not talking like 12 AM, 1 AM, 2 AM, are we? I'm asking him, I'm not asking anybody else.
With respect to the hours of the store, we have to comply with the local township requirements for when a business can and can't be open. And are you talking about delivery hours? And I can supply that information at a later date, tomorrow or whatever. I can get the standard times that all deliveries are made.
That'd be good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm going to propose moving on to criteria number 5. I guess to summarize number 4, number 4 is met. There's some additional information we're going to ask the applicant for just to clarify a couple things. Okay. Number 5, all buildings or groups of buildings should be so arranged as to permit emergency vehicle access by some practical means to all sides. I would argue this one has met. It's kind of sits by itself. Emergency access should not be an issue.
What do you think?
We could make it subject to fire department of review as well, Bob, but that would, and I think that was one of the things we listed initially.
But just looking from the site plan, from what I saw, it looks to me as though there's, if you're gonna get commercial, freight box vans that can get in there and maneuver, I believe that our fire truck can get in and out with no issue. So I believe that's met.
Okay. And we were going to place a condition on this of fire department review anyway. Correct, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, so 5 is met. 6, every structure or dwelling unit shall have access to a street, walkway, or other area dedicated to common use. I think that standard would be met. Any disagreement?
Met.
Barb, Denise, All make sense?
Yes, it's met.
Okay, Matt. Jason, Laura, good. Okay, number 7, there should be provided a pedestrian circulation system, which is insulated from vehicular circulation system. So it's kind of isolated. I think that that one would have been met. Hearing no concerns, we'll move on to number 8. All loading and unloading areas and outside storage areas, including areas for storage of trash, which faces or is visible from residential districts, shall be screened by vertical screen of not less than 8 feet. Sarah, I think that was specifically in the application, wasn't it? That they, as part of the construction?
They have screening around the dumpster that is provided.
Is it at 8 feet?
It's proposed to be a 6-foot screen.
So in that
It is
case,
solid, I mean, it's a solid, actually, it says it's masonry, so it's some sort of a masonry or concrete block with, wood door, not, like fence, solid fence on the front.
so would this one be met if they made it 8 feet?
Yes.
It's proposed at 6 now, but if they made it 8, we could just make it a condition and make it 8 feet.
Yep.
Committee members agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Number 9, exterior lighting shall be shielded. Illuminates downward direction as deflected away from neighboring properties, so it does not impede the vision of traffic along adjacent streets nor add to the visual light pollution of neighboring properties or the sky above. So we have a light ordinance separate, so I can't judge whether or not this particular application would meet that, but we could make it a condition that it's subject to, they would have to adjust their lighting subject to the ordinance.
I noticed in that one spot, it's referred to a catalog. Like a lighting catalog?
It has, so that you can look at the specs for what the lights are. So they provided, it's E5 is your lighting plan, and it's got the photometrics that show you each of the lights and how much light will shine off of the property at the, well, it shows you the whole property, but at the property line. So you can see along the south property line, there are some areas because they have lighting runs right along that property line, that it can be a little bit brighter at the property lines. It looks like the east and the north have 0, and there's a little bit up on the front too on the roadside. All of the lighting would have to meet our zoning ordinance, which is 100% cutoff. That means the bulb is up, under the shield, so the bulb's not exposed. That's to direct the light downward. So, that's a requirement in the ordinance, is that minimum lighting. We don't have anything really about how much of your light can kind of shed onto the neighbors. It's not supposed to be directed at the neighbors or out on the road, but when you shine it down, you do get some of that goes out and can shed.
So is it common with site plan submittal, we have lighting detail plans?
This ordinance doesn't require that.
Okay.
It is common though.
So it's safe to assume we can't evaluate whether or not it meets this standard unless we either have more information or we make any approval subject to satisfactory meeting of the ordinance itself.
Right. Yeah, so you could say it's satisfied and subject to the requirements of the ordinance, and then we can double check, we would double check it prior to issuing a land use permit. So.
Okay, so 9 would be subject to the lighting ordinance. 10, all approaches to paved public roads shall be surfaced with, what was that word again, with bituminous, asphalt, concrete, and similar pervious or impervious materials. I think that's met. Yep. Number 11, the arrangement of public or common ways for vehicular and pedestrian circulation, so respect the pattern of existing and planned streets. This was a big item as far as the public concerns and the commission's concerns. I I think we want to make this subject to, we had the traffic volumes there, which might be okay, but it should be subject to the potential for a study to see if an existing lane might have to be put in. I guess that's a proposal for the commission. Or do we think that that one is met based on what we've seen?
I think that may be up to MDOT, what they even can do there.
Oh,
You know,
good.
MDOT's going to be in control of what happens on 31.
Good point. That's because we could make that subject to MDOT's review and,
Right,
Yeah.
an MDOT permit for it.
okay. Does that work for the commission?
Yes.
Yep. All streets and roads should be developed in a manner that is protective of public health, safety, and general welfare. This, again, this is talks specifically about Michigan Department of Transportation and Antrim County specs, so same thing here.
Yeah, and there's no new streets or roads being proposed in here.
Yes, that's
So-
is almost NA. 13, water supplies that are of sufficient quantity which are easily accessible shall be available for the purpose of suppression of the type and magnitude of fire that would typically occur based on the type of development being proposed. So we had said that we didn't know for sure, but we're going to make this subject to fire department review.
Right.
Okay. Number 14, buildings should be adequately screened with the native vegetation and are subject to approved lighting and landscape plans. Well, we already talked about the lighting. It's going to be subject to the ordinance.
I think the landscape plan, don't we have landscape plan in the zoning ordinance that has to be native plants?
Yeah, and they did, I mean, they provided, C5 of their application has their landscaping plan. They do have, they looked at the planting guide. We don't have numbers of plants required. So that would be where the planning commission would want to look to see if this is satisfied to be adequately screened based on the information that they are giving you. So they are up in the front here, they've got a couple of large trees. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. And then there's some deciduous shrubs that are around those. They kind of go all along the front. And then along the property line on the back side, there's a greenbelt screening, and that has a couple of evergreen trees in it and a couple of deciduous trees and then some deciduous shrubs on that. They haven't proposed any trees or shrubs along the south property line. And up on the north side, there is some existing vegetation that they're not removing that runs into that wetland and goes along the north property line.
You say there is vegetation will be removed. You're talking about the wetland on the east side of the site?
Yeah, the kind of the north side, the whole north property line, that I would consider that existing vegetation that they're not removing. So on the landscape plan, they don't show you where the existing is, but from one of the other plans, it shows where they.
Yeah, I had a question. That was one of my questions in standard number 3. It talks about a permit. On the site plan, it talks about that wetland not to be disturbed. The building envelope comes right up to that.
It does.
The landscaping around the building appears to be in that wetland. How is it not disturbed if the building is right up on it? But I don't know what the setback should be before there's disturbance. If you're saying there's going to be landscaping that's removed. I think 3 is not met unless there's something that happens with a permit where the review goes out and says you need to change the size of the building because you're too close to the wetland and you can't take out the vegetation that exists that's in the wetland to make the site work. If that's part of the permit review, that was my big question on 3 was wetlands. That's why I read through the wetland delineation report. It identifies where the wetlands is, but I can't tell what the mitigation is and how they'll stay away. And I look at the site plan, and it's right up on the wetland. And that was one of the comments from the public. In 2 or 3 of the letters that I read, it was issued as well, or identified as well.
And so ensure compliance with wetland preservation. That would be both soil erosion with county, it would also be with Eagle?
Eagle would only get involved if you get into the wetlands.
Okay.
So,
So from a review
I know, I
perspective.
don't know how they're not gonna get into the wetland because the edge of the building is adjacent and you're gonna have to dig a foundation and footings, which,
Right,
I
so
think
they
the
would have to
factor
have
of it,
some.
I think the function of being too big.
Yeah.
It's too big for the site. The building is too big for the site.
And regardless, they would have to meet soil erosion, which we've already indicated, and Eagle if they couldn't stay away far enough from it.
right, we do not have a setback in our ordinance from wetlands.
But Eagle does.
Eagle does not have a setback.
don't?
No, they just say you can't build or work or cut in a wetland without a permit. And they have certain requirements to get a permit, so you still could potentially do work in the wetlands with a permit from Eagle.
Okay. But their requirements are, I mean, I personally have been dealing with them about just shifting a driveway over and I got crushed. So I know that they're pretty stringent on that. I guess my point is that we could make that subject to soil erosion and Eagle permits because they would, you know, they have the governing body that makes sure that those are protected. Okay, so that was,
Sorry, I jumped.
oh, no, that's okay. So we're still on number 14. Adequately screened and native vegetation. So the boundary to the south, Sarah, you were talking about is not screened well. And I'm looking at a couple of pictures now as well that I can see where there's nothing, at least at the drawings I'm looking at, that there's nothing proposed there. We could make it subject to, if there's, assuming there's got to be enough room in that between the edge of the parking lot, subject to a row of native type vegetation there.
Do you have any direction on what that vegetation would look like? If it's gonna be trees or shrubs? I would suggest something that's at least 4 feet in height, since that's where parking is, and those lights from the cars at night would
That's a good
shine
point.
onto the neighboring property. But that would be up to the planning commission.
I think that seems appropriate, for at least 4 feet high. And I would think native vegetation, combination of trees and shrubs, sufficiently spaced so that it provides a screen. It can't be just something every 20 feet. Does that seem reasonable to the commission? So if we have that in there, would item 14 with that condition be, can we move on from number 14?
Yes.
Okay, number 15, site plan shall conform to all applicable requirements of township, county, state, and federal statutes, and approval should be conditioned on the applicant receiving all necessary permits, which we've already talked about. So I think that one's met. So any other questions on general standards for site plan? Okay. Okay, let's move into special use. There are 4 standards here. The first one, the special use proposed must be consistent with and promote the purpose and intent of the ordinance and zone district in which the use is proposed. I have a lot of questions on this one. I don't see that it does.
I don't see how that's met either, since it's in the village business district. And it's way larger than it should be, and it's just all sorts of reasons that most of the public spoke about.
In the words purpose and intent of the ordinance, we spent a lot of time as a commission going over the master plan, both in its current form and even in future form, future modifications to it. But even in the existing master plan, we talked about things like the hamlet type of feeling. This is where I struggle, but I'm certainly open to discussion from the committee.
I absolutely don't think it meets the requirement.
Okay. Other views?
I guess this is the point at which I start to go off on this. I don't think that it conforms to the master plan in terms of preserving the rural character of the area. And also, sorry, I lost my place in here. I'm sorry, if you want to go on,
Yes, so-
I'll get back to the comment.
Bill, did you have?
No,
any comments?
I don't think it meets, for the reasons Bob just described. And I'm using a pretty broad understanding of promote the purpose and intent.
Sure. Okay.
And
Jason?
I'm sorry, I found what I was looking for here that I wanted to say. In another section of the master plan, it says, support the continued and appropriate scale mixed residential and commercial development of Torch Lake and Eastport on a small town compact community scale. With a township that only has a maximum of 1,200 residents. I don't know that on the scale alone, that we need an additional store like this to serve 1,200 residents of this township. We have 31 Scoops where you can purchase some food items. You have Eastport Market. I won't include the restaurant because that's kind of a different thing. But I believe that to put this in would really skew that scale.
Okay.
I agree. I had that same thing highlighted, the scale.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, we'll make sure. So can you repeat your comment, Laura?
Yeah, I agreed with Bob that I had the same thing highlighted, that the scale, it doesn't fit. And I agree that number one is where it doesn't meet the character. And that was the huge note from the public that they totally just reiterated what the master plan says. That's really, really important. It's throughout the master plan, and that's throughout the ordinance as well.
Yeah, I think the important aspect of this is how does it fit within our master plan? Does it fit with the I use the words purpose and intent of the ordinance as we have drafted it, and not drafted, but as we have been operating within it. So that's where I viewed it. And Jason, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm with Bob and Laura on this one.
So for 1701 standard number one, I'd like a roll call vote on this just to make sure we've got everyone. So, and whether or not standard one meets it. So Barbara,
Not met.
Denise,
Not met.
Bob,
Not met.
Bill,
Not met.
chair says not met. Jason,
Not met.
Laura.
Not met.
Okay. Thank you. On to standard two, special use proposed must be compatible with the zoning and use of adjacent lands.
Very similar to number one. I think that's not met as well.
It's either all or not met. It's consistent with the zoning. It's not met for the use of adjacent lands. So it's an all or nothing, it's not met.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Yep.
same.
I would agree with that one as well. I'd also like to do a roll call vote on number two.
Can I just ask a question?
yes.
When you say it's not consistent with the neighboring lands, is there something specific about it that's not consistent that you can give me an example to write down?
I think it's by size, by scale, by fit, by chain, by not being mom pop, single owned. It's the opposite of Providence. While that's not adjacent, I think it's part of, at least what I think about when I think about the service to our township.
And I could also add to that we are operating and managing this community around a master plan that describes and provides characteristics of a vision of how we want this community to be. and we don't feel that this fits. So if it doesn't fit in the property itself, the adjacent properties, it can't either because it is adjacent to them. I can't remember where we were on that.
You're about ready to
Do a
take
roll call
on it.
vote. Okay. So roll call vote for number 2. Laura?
Not met.
Jason?
Not met.
Chairman says not met.
Not met.
Not met.
Not met.
Not met.
Okay. Number 3, the special use proposed must not adversely impact the environment. I believe this one here, we can't evaluate that, but what we did say was that the combination of soil erosion and Eagle would provide both the framework for evaluation and criteria to potentially meet that, much like we discussed before.
On this one, again, I take a pretty broad interpretation of environment.
Okay.
I think we can't tell from the physical environment, but I suspect that it might with the wetlands, but I think with the general environment of the township, the business environment, the health environment, some of the comments from the public, I don't think it's met. I do think there would be adverse impacts to the general environment of the township.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Other views on that one?
I heard people say there would be additional litter, trash. We have to be sensitive to the plastic leaching, and I think because of their products and their packaging, I think it would be a bigger issue for us. So that's part of our environment too.
Barb, what are your views on this one?
Same
Same?
thing. That's what I've heard.
Okay. Jason and Laura?
Is it fair, Sarah, to broadly use the word environment?
Yeah, it's environment. It doesn't say
Okay.
the physical.
Okay, all right. In that case, yes, exactly. I'd take all those little things from all of the letters and all the comments, and you definitely have a lot of those to shove into environment, and I would say it wouldn't be met then.
Jason?
Sure.
Sure it meets it, sure it does not.
I got some, no, we're good, sure.
Oh, man, we're good. So you say it's not met then?
It's not.
Okay. Okay, so number 4, the special use proposed must not unduly burden or exceed the ability of public services or facilities to handle the anticipated needs of the community. I started number 3 before and I changed my view, so I'm going to let somebody else go this time. Oh, the my last comment? Okay, so the standard is the special use proposed must not unduly burden or exceed the ability of public services or facilities to handle the anticipated needs of the community.
I think that's met. If we're talking about the public services and facilities, I don't know that the square footage has a difference there for a fire response or a ambulance response or law enforcement response. So I think it's met.
I would add to that we were going to have a fire department review anyway, and that's one of the facilities. And I think from a amount of customers and so forth, ambulance services, things of that nature, seems like that standard would be met to me as well. But the other members of the commission feel differently. Hearing none, I'm going to assume number 4 is met. Actually, for consistency, let's do a quick roll call vote on number 4. I'll go first. Chair views it as met. Jason?
Met.
Laura?
Met.
Bill?
Met.
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 Okay, thank you. So with that, the actual, after reviewing all of the criteria, Sarah, that at this point, from a procedural perspective, we have done our analysis on this. At this point, because one or more standards are not met, that means the application is denied.
Correct.
So do we need to do a formal, we have to do a formal motion and to
Right.
basically deny it based on the review of our criteria?
Correct. Yeah, I don't know if somebody wants to take a pen down and I can give you kind of everything your motion needs to include, but somebody else, one of you has to say it. So. This only has
I did
one
it
parcel-
yesterday.
This
Okay.
only has one
All right,
parcel
so-
number, not four. So you're doing a motion to deny the application for its PCA 2022-01 for the proposed Dollar General retail store at 5470 North US 31, parcel number 0514-106-01110. Out of space. As it does not meet the standards for approval and criteria in the zoning ordinance. You can add your own flavor into that, but that's the minimum that motion needs to include.
So can we have a motion to deny the application?
I'll make the motion to deny the application for PCA 202201 for the proposed Dollar General retail store at 5470 North US 31, parcel number 0514-106-01110, as it does not meet the standards for approval and criteria in the zoning ordinance.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Laura? Speak, I can't hear you.
Yes.
Yes. Jason?
Yes.
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 Chairman says yes. So the application for the Dollar General retail store application is denied. So at this point, the main purpose of the special meeting is completed. Would like to open up the floor for general comment, public comment. If anybody has any comments, thank you for your time. Thank you, sir. Please come up and state your name and state one comment, please.
My name is Jim King. I wanted you folks on the commission to know I was on the planning commission for several years. And I know that you have to go through every point and discuss them. And I know these people were emotional tonight. And I appreciate your patience for the most part, Jason. Excuse me. But I wanted to say thank you. And one other thing is the planning consultant that we worked with had at several occasions discussed the fact that law will follow the land use plan, even if it contradicts the ordinance at different times. And so I applaud your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments this evening? If so, please come forward. Looks like we have one other person coming.
I'd also like to congratulate you all for going through this as thoroughly and with as great equanimity as you did. I was sitting next to the gentleman who kind of exploded And I wondered if there is not an opportunity for some civic education at the beginning of some of the meetings to clarify why you have to do what you have to do so you don't get so much pushback. I know you don't want to do it for every meeting, but I think most of us here don't understand the legal ramifications of what you're doing, and it might help to bring people together to understand why you have to do it.
I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
And let us know how many sections there are.
There's a truckload.
You should have been here last night.
So with that, we've completed, oh, I'm sorry, Sharon, I
Yeah,
apologize.
we're earlier than 11:30, right? I could go on forever. I want to say thank you to the Planning Commission also. Your work is not unheard. It is met with great aspiration. I used in my comments tonight the special use 4 different times and 4 different comments. And with your analysis, you kind of touched on a lot of my special use verbiage as far as to your deliberation. And I thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. So with that, we have, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Real quickly, I'd like to say thank you as well. We appreciate your thoughtful consideration, and hopefully this is the end to it and there's no appeal that's able to happen, right?
Thank you. So
Only if Shawn promises to lower the gas price.
okay. So let's adjourn this meeting. So could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned.
Who seconded the